Hello everyone and welcome to Callsign Charlie Models. Time for another inbox review, and today's unboxing is of the Trumpeter 132nd EF-2000A Eurofighter Typhoon with a total length of 498 millimeters and a wingspan of 352 millimeters and more than 460 parts. So starting off with the top box art, as typical, looks absolutely amazing. As always. So again, moving off to the sides, looks like we have two different versions. We have a British version and a German version as our decal options right in here, that actually look fairly nice. And then we move to the other side and we have some pictures of a built model, and then another history of the Eurofighter Typhoon along here. And something to solve the age-old battle that this product is not a toy. Like many people, there's a major argument in the hobby of whether these are toys or art. I tend to side on the fact of art. So let's have a nice little discussion on what you think of the hobby. Are they toys or are they art when they are all done? So I'm going to get the box all unpacked. Like typical Trumpeter, it is absolutely loaded down with plastic. So give me 1 second and I'll be back with you with the instructions. Alright, so we're starting off with the instructions, and it's typical. It's a kind of a booklet format for the Trumpeter instructions, and this is item number 02278. I know these can be kind of difficult sometimes to find, so if you can get your hands on one, definitely get one. So, and then on the bottom corner we have the legend of symbols that we will be seeing throughout these instructions. Then we open it up, and then as typical we have our parts call out on the first couple pages. Then after that we are starting with our cockpit, getting our cockpit or ejection seat done and the cockpit tub assembled. Then after that we have a radar to assemble, and then we're getting our fuselage halves along with our speed brake well, along with our forward canards put in, and we also have a couple pieces to add in for the electronics bay as well, all along in here. If you can see it on the right in there. So then moving on, we have full length engines, getting all those assembled, and then we're moving on to our nose and main landing gear pieces as well, getting those all assembled. Then after that we're getting our landing gear wells assembled, and then we are getting our intakes put together and everything else put in. And then after that we're working on our wings. We have flaps and slats on this that are positionable, it looks like. Okay, and then we have our speed brake. We have the option of a open or closed position. Then we have the piece right here to close off the back end of our cockpit, and then we have some doors to have for our electronics bay here as well. And then after that we're getting top fuselage half and the bottom fuselage half together with our nose cone, and then the engine exhaust as well. Then moving along, we're adding our fuel probe, and then we're adding in a couple more pieces for our intakes right in here. Then our landing gear doors, and there our tail hook and another vent or scoop for that. And then we have a couple pieces to add on for the ailerons or the slats as well. And then after that we're starting with our missiles, getting our Meteor beyond visual range air-to-air missiles put in, and then we have our canopy going in, and then after that we have all of our loadout. We have fuel tanks, ECM pods, alarm missiles, all that going on, and then we have some more missiles right in here, long range joint standoff attack missiles, and then after that we have our loadout right in here on just suggestion of where each ordnance would go in a typical loadout. So again, some very nice instructions on there. Then we have our color callouts. This is the British version. It does not say what squadron or what unit it is from. It just is a basic description of it, and the call out is okay, kind of plain, and but we'll have to see what's out there for aftermarket as well. I do know one of the very few throwback schemes that I actually do like is the throwback to the D-Day scheme on the Eurofighter. I think that one absolutely looks amazing, so we'll have to see. Maybe we can find decals for that one. And then we also have the a German Eurofighter as well. And then our decal and color callouts for all of our ordnance as well through here. Alright, so moving on to our first decal sheet. Again, the decals do look very nice. There is a crinkle right here that's just for it being folded over. And then all the decals actually do look very nice. They are very thin, so it shouldn't not be an issue of getting those applied. Okay, and then we have a decal sheet for all of our ordnance right in here. Same as the previous decal sheet. All the decals do look very nice. On the German Rec Pod, the writing on here, I'm using quotation marks, is just a bunch of blocks. There's no actual lettering to it on there. So that is one downside to that decal, but everything else looks okay, especially with the AMRAAMs, the pylon decals, and the Storm Shadow. All those decals do look very nice. Okay, and then moving on, we have our more RAF and Germany common decals, Germany and Austria common decals, along with the RAF common decals, and then common decals that go all around. All the nose steps do look nice, and then moving right along. And then we have another one for Spain along here, but I didn't see a decal option for that. So and then the instrument panels. Alright, so we have decals for the instrument panels, and I do have to say that these do not look good. Honestly speaking, they look toyish in my opinion, and they are a little bit thick, and there is a glossy finish to them, so you're definitely going to have to fight that silvering on that. So I would highly recommend either getting some Quinta Studios or Red Fox decals to go in place of these, and also possibly a resin cockpit set instead. Okay, and up next we have a photo-etch fret, and it's just our seat belts, some rear view mirrors, and a couple other pieces right here, but not much to those. Again, I am not a fan of the photo-etch seat belts that are included in these kits, so definitely looking at Quinta Studios or anybody else that have these seat belts. Now, I wish HGW would come out with some modern seatbelts. They have a plethora of World War II seatbelts for World War II aircraft, but nothing for modern ejection seats. So that is definitely an area that HGW could definitely make a killing on that. Alright, so our first plastic sprue, and the detail on here looks pretty good. Some wiring decal for the landing gear wells. Your wheels, the detail on them rather looks basic, and not much detail to those at all. And again, with your landing gear wells, a little bit of wiring detail in there, but not much to see. You're not going to be able to see much of it anyways unless you flip the model over. There is some nice wiring detail, brake cable detail to your landing gear struts. So those are very nice. And then we flip it over to the other side, where your landing gear doors, again, no ejection pin marks on those either side. So these or these do not have ejection pin marks. And and all the ejection pin marks are put in places. I'm checking landing gear doors. So this is your nose landing gear door. There's no ejection pin marks on that either. All the ejection pin marks so far are all in places that you will not be able to see when the model is assembled. Okay, our next sprue is of the pylons, and we have some nice recessed panel lines, and then also some raised bolt detail on these. As you can see right through here, some very nice raised bolt detail on those, and we get 2 of these sprues. Alright, so moving on, we have our cockpit tub. Again, the inside of the cockpit tub, not much detail to it, but you're going to have some walls that go on there, and we're going to see that here in a little bit when we flip it over. But these pieces are for your electronics bay right in there. We flip it over. There's some decent switch detail on there. I think I'm rather have the Quinta Studios or a resin cockpit for the detail on that, because that looks rather generic on those. And then we just, everything else kind of just looks generic for the detail on this. And your front instrument panel, again, with the more modern jets, you're going to have more MFDs and less dials on here, but again, those look okay, but definitely going to want to kind of spruce that up, and the decal is going to go over it, but the decal, like I said, kind of looks toyish in my opinion, so definitely going to want to figure out a way to spruce this up a little bit more. Okay, on to the next bag, and we have our fuel tanks, and the fuel tanks do have rather crisp panel lines and rivets all through there, so no issues with any of those. Those should look very nice when they are all done. And then we have this part, which is the flaps or the winglets that go on the very top of them, and I'm hoping that there's no issues with the connection points of that area. And then we have a piece that can make or break a kit, in my opinion, and those are the intakes. And the intakes, alright, so they did a very nice job on the ejection pin marks on here. So there are no ejection pin marks up forward of here, so right here on these, and then again on the top side, again, no ejection pin marks right on here. And then all the ejection pin marks are placed all the way back here, so you are not going to be able to see these at all, especially with these ribs that go down the middle as structure for those. So some very nice ejection pin placement, because you won't be able to see those unless somehow you get a mirror or something like that down there, or you just catch it at the right half a degree of an angle. Those should not be an issue at all. The only thing that you're going to have to worry about is the seam line at the beginning of the intake when you're working on that, when you get that glued together. So again, some very nice job on the placement of the ejector pin marks for that. And then we flip it over to the other side, and again, I kind of wish they would have put the ejector pin marks on this side, because you're not going to be able to see any of this. But again, the way that they did the ejector pin marks on here is actually pretty nice. So we'll have to see when it goes together. We'll have to do a test of looking down the pipe to see how much of it we can see. But all in all, so far it's looking pretty good. Okay, up next we have rubber tires. The tread detail on here is very nice, but there is no sidewall detail on these rubber tires. So again, I'll be going with the resin tires and wheels for this kit. Okay, we have our first loadout or armament sprue, and we get 2 of these sprues right here, and some very nice missiles along in here. These are your alarm missiles. I believe these are your storm shadows right in here, and then your meteor missiles right in there. So again, some very nice detail on these missiles. I'm not seeing any real issues with any of those. These are the wings for your storm shadows right in here. So again, very nice detail. There is almost an ejector pin mark or a sink mark right on the very tip of these wings for your Storm Shadows, so you'll definitely want to sand those out and take care of that if you are going to have it. Yeah, so that's how that is. So you're definitely going to want to take care of that. I'm hoping that the camera will pick that up. Yeah, so but yes, if you run your finger over it, it's smooth, but you can see it as if there's supposed to be an ejector pin mark there. Alright, so up next we have looks like a piece for our fuel tank, and then the front faces for our intakes right in here. I'm not sure what this piece is for, maybe an electronics area, and then our radar and the side panels to our ejection seats, and then radar or ECM pods for the wingtips and ladder right in here. So on the front face, all the detail absolutely looks great. I'm assuming that these right here are our chaff and flare dispensers right in there. Those do look okay. I'm sure they'll take a wash real nice on that. And then we flip it over to the other side. Here's where we start running into issues. We do have rather large ejector pin marks all through there and then all in here. I'm not sure on, because it looks like there's a piece that goes on the inside of here that might be blocking off that piece right there, and then this I'm assuming will be up against a fuselage, so you're not going to be able to see any of it. So I'm hoping that's the case, because those are very large and very deep ejector pin marks. And for the rest of everything, you do have ejector pin marks on the inside of your ejection seats that I'm hoping that seat cushions will block out, but we'll have to see about that. Either way, I'm not really worried about it, because I am not going to be using these ejection seats because they do look rather basic and under detailed for a 1/32 scale kit and of Trumpeter's typical quality of kits that they do. Okay, and then after that we have another fuel tank, and then our radar pod right in here, and then the ends to our, or beginning of our jet nozzles right in there. The detail on that looks okay. We do have a scratch mark from where the nose folded over and hit it and was just rubbing up against it. So definitely going to want to take care of that on both ends, on the exhaust and on the nose cone as well. So again, a little bit of detail to take care of, but it shouldn't be much. There is a little bit of flash on the edge of the nose cone, so that shouldn't be too big of an issue to take care of because it is rather thin. Then everything else on the reverse side, not going to see any of this really. Just the fuel probe, again, nice and smooth, one piece. You do have a little bit of a seam line going right down the middle, but a quick run with your hobby knife and that will all be gone. Alright, so moving on to our next sprue, we have our front canards right in here. There is a little bit of flash on the edge right here that we'll definitely want to take care of, and the rivet detail on these flaps so far from what I know look absolutely amazing. Now with that being said, I am definitely going to need to go in and do some research to see if these rivets actually are supposed to be there, because at one point Trumpeter decided to go on a rivet frenzy and just add rivets to everything on the aircraft, to even aircraft that didn't have rivets. They went rivet crazy on the Intruder, which doesn't have a lot of rivets, and for God's sake they even added a ton of rivets to the F-35 kit. So definitely gonna have to check the validity of these rivets to see if they're actually supposed to be there or not. So, but if they are, they look absolutely amazing. If they're not, definitely gonna have to take care of them with some putty and sanding to get rid of all of them. And the same thing with this sprue. There's some more flaps and more slat controls and all that. So again, some nice detail. Hopefully the rivet detail is actually supposed to be there, because that will lessen the workload on that. Okay, so the bottom wing section comes very, very well protected. As you can see here, there's a nice cardboard box right here. Then it's wrapped with the packing foam in there. So I'm going to get this all cut off, and then we're going to take a look at everything. Alright, so looking at the wings and the bottom fuselage, again with the rivet detail all through there, I'm hoping, yep, there we can see it on the camera. Some very nice rivet detail, if the rivet detail is actually supposed to be there. We'll have to check and see. There is a little sprue nub right in here that we'll have to cut off and sand down to make it a nice smooth fit. And then on the bottom side, again, very nice rivet detail along in all of this. And we also have some ejector marks in here. I think these are for maybe chaff and flare or ECM type stuff right there. But again, some very nice crisp panel line detail and rivet detail, and I'm just hoping that all this rivet detail is actually supposed to be there. Now, rubbing my finger across the plastic, there is a little bit of a rough texture in here, so definitely going to want to give that a little wipe down, and maybe a quick wash with some Dawn soap and a stiff bristle toothbrush to kind of knock that down. Alright, so moving on to our fuselage on here, and there's some very nice crisp panel lines and rivet details, and then on here it does not look like they went like rivet crazy on the fuselage halves, and even on these cooling ducts for the guns, it's nice and hollowed out, so you're actually going to be able to see back into it. And then on the vertical stabilizer, again, some nice rivet detail. I'm hoping that that detail is actually supposed to be there. I'm going to have to do some research and see. And then it's just a repeat for the other side. And then we have our parts for our cockpit, the rear cockpit, and our instrument combing right in here, and then our doors right in there, and our speed brake. So we flip it over to the other side. For our speed brake, I believe this is for the down position or down, and some ejector pin marks. You're definitely going to want to sand those down because they are a little bit raised, so that will affect your fit on that, so definitely pay close attention to that. But for the doors for your avionics bay, again, nice and smooth on the inside, no ejector pin marks, so you can have those open. You won't have to worry about any extra work on those. Alright, so moving on to our engine sprue, and the detail on here looks fairly nice for your exhaust cans. A little bit of flash, and there's a little bit of a wave to the exhaust can, but again, that detail should show up fairly nicely. And then you have all the full-length engine for this, which you won't be able to see unless you open up panels on here. So if you want to, you can open up the panel on the underside to show off the engine work, and there is a bunch of little pieces that go all the way through here, and a little bit of wiring detail molded into that, so it is fairly nice. But for me personally, I won't be adding any of the detail to any of the engines. I'll just build them up, and I'm going to be concentrating on the interior of the exhaust can right in here if I do the kit parts, but most likely I'll be using the Aries exhaust cans or for these. So, but out of the box, they do look okay. Your fans, your intake fans, again, look okay, and then the exhaust area, there's little to no detail on your exhaust burner can ring on that, so just beware of that stuff right there. Alright, so we have our last sprue of clear parts. Clear parts look very nice and clear. No magnification or distortion on there. I am reading one of the labels I have on one of my drawers through it, and I am not seeing any issues with that. There is a seam line that goes right down the middle right here, but it's a very faint seam line, so it shouldn't take much to take care of that on there. And just looking at it, all right, I see a little bit of a sink mark or mismold in this clear part right in here, and I don't know if the camera is going to pick that up at all, but there's a little bit of a, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like a little, it's like somebody tried to put a little bit of extra plastic in there at the last second, and it cooled off at a different rate than the rest of it. So again, the rest of the plastic the clear plastic looks very nice, except for that one little divot right there. And then on your front canopy section, again, we do have the seam line right down the middle, and you do have a little bit of a wavy effect on when the two plastics came together the two liquid plastics came together in the middle. You do have a little bit of a wave factor in there that I can see, but I'm not sure if the camera will pick that up. But the camera is looking pretty darn good. You do have the seam line down the middle, but other than that, everything looks okay. I'm hoping that when you put a polish on everything, that will take care of that waviness in the clear part. Alright, so that does it for the 132nd EF-2000A Eurofighter Typhoon, and all I can say is the kit, it looks decent. I'm not going to say it looks outstanding. I'm not going to say it looks great. I'm just going to say it looks decent. We'll have to see about the rivet detail on how accurate that is and go from there on that. The clear parts, they looked okay. There's a little bit of a wavy effect to the plastic. It was like the plastic wasn't warm enough when it was going in there to form, and then cooled at just different rates on that. The decals, they look okay. Now the cockpit decals, absolute trash. So there's no way that I will be using the cockpit decals for those, because those look like absolute trash. But everything else looks decent. I do like how they did the intakes, where they put the ejector pin marks farther down in the intakes, where you're not really going to be able to see it very well, if able to see it at all. So that's a positive on that. The landing gear, the rubber wheels look okay if you just want to use that. There's no sidewall detail or any of that. The wheels, the actual wheel hubs, they look basic. Not much detail to them. I'll have to do some research and see how detailed the actual hub is, to see if those have like a lot of nuts and bolts and all that stuff, and castle nuts to it. But we'll have to see about that. The kit, when it's all built, is still going to look very impressive when it's all said and done. And with a few aftermarket pieces added into it, like the engines and the cockpit, definitely those two are going to be added to this kit. For the landing gear, the wheels, definitely for me, are going to be added. And then also we'll look into, I know Edwards Storm Shadow missiles look absolutely amazing on those, and the alarm missiles, I've used those on my Tornado. Those also look absolutely amazing. So I might be doing a mix match of armament in this kit. But again, I think this kit, when you get it all said and done, it's gonna look absolutely amazing. The cockpit, like I said, the decals on it look toyish to me. They don't look good. But that's the only gripes that I have about this kit. But I hope you enjoyed this inbox review. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment down below. Especially if you built this kit, let us know if there were any fit issues or any other issues that you ran into while building this kit. And I look forward to hearing from you. So until next time, have a great day, stay frosty, and happy modeling.